The second I knew the axe had fallen? When Chad nudged a manila folder toward me like he was sliding a losing poker hand across a casket. "We can replace you for half," he announced, his smirk so oily it could have lubricated a jet engine. I didn't reply, not because I lacked ammunition, but because my supervisor Mark sat beside him, blinking like a guilt-ridden deer. He murmured something about not being personal, but it barely registered. My ears buzzed, filled with the static of disbelief and rage wrapped in silence. My badge? Deactivated before my coat even hit my shoulders. 10 solid years reduced to a spreadsheet cell and a generic exit script. They escorted me like a biohazard. Chad didn't blink, just tossed me a cardboard container like he was bagging groceries and shuffled back to his microwave 10 a.m. tofu disaster. Inside the box? Predictable artifacts of loyalty. A dusty mug etched with a caffeine molecule. A 2016 team photo where I still had hope in my eyes. A tiny succulent that survived 2 acquisitions and my entire marriage unraveling. And a flash drive I forgot even existed. That one? I clutched like a relic. The lobby reeked of disinfectant and unkept promises. I didn't cry. I don't cry. My emotions have better contract terms than I ever did. But I stood on the sidewalk staring at that concrete behemoth, and something shifted. Detachment. Not sadness. Not fury. Detachment. Dan-7.my baby. The server fortress I architected from. Budget bones and caffeine. The biometric fortress everyone praised but never truly understood. Fingerprint. Retinal scan. Voice recognition. Mine. Just mine. They never added backup access. I suggested it. 3 times. Ignored every time. Funny, really. I used to joke, what? If they fire me someday, and laugh it off because I was loyal. Because I was sure I was untouchable. Turns out, I was just naive, and before you expect some noble walk-off moment, let me crush that fantasy. I sat in my Civic, hurled the box into the back seat, held into my steering wheel like a possessed GPS unit, and blasted the AC in 40-degree weather just to feel something that wasn't humiliation. You ever tasted shame? It's like Meadowland. Chewed gum. Not pleasant. Still reading? Good. Do me a small favor, tap that subscribe button. I'm aiming for 10k subs without peddling sketchy crypto or essential oils. Every click is another brick in my petty little revenge palace. And trust me, the stories get juicier anyway. Back to the carnage. I drove. No destination. Just instincts and adrenaline. Stopped at a red light, watched a teenager TikTok into oncoming traffic, and then, bam. That flicker. A spark behind the fog. Dan-7's lock, the state-of-the-art security vault. My brainchild. Biometric access. No override. My unique credentials, the only way in. They never patched it. They never added a second admin. I asked. Mark waved it off like dandruff every single time. Well, Mark, I muttered, hope you brought snacks. Because the ghost you just ghosted? She's the only one who can open that vault. I wasn't devastated anymore. I wasn't even furious. I was fascinated. How long until they realized the linchpin was no longer on payroll? I turned off the radio. The quiet? Tasted like thunder waiting to strike. Anticipation. Electricity in the air. Phone buzzed. Once. Then again. Recognized the number. I let it ring, let them sweat. Home felt foreign. The kind of strange that creeps in when routines break without warning. No steady airflow from the desk purifier. No familiar clicks from Brian hammering keys like a typewriter. Possessed. Just an eerie, vacuum-like stillness. Not comforting, not peaceful, just loud in its emptiness. I dumped the box on the marble countertop. The succulent flopped sideways, soil scattering like it gave up its will to live. I tilted my head at it and muttered, I feel you. Unpacking felt pointless. What was I going to do? Frame that tacky motivational award over the trash bin? Booting up my laptop felt like resurrecting a ghost. Its welcome chime was too bright, too cheerful. Browser tabs opened like muscle memory. Monster. Indeed. ZipRecruiter. Each one chirped the same insipid greeting. Hi Jennifer. Ready for your next adventure? Sure, let's filter out positions requiring 20 years of experience, youth, serum, and an undergrad degree from Hogwarts. I scrolled like a zombie. Eyes open, heart unplugged. That's when the doubts began poking holes in my confidence. Am I obsolete? Do I still pass for hireable? Is my LinkedIn photo aging in dog years? A folder sat on my desktop like a relic. Career_reload. Last modified, 5 years ago. I opened it, stared at ancient drafts of resumes like old yearbook photos, cringy, optimistic, and absolutely delusional. Then came the calls, unknown number again, and again, each one timed like someone pacing their panic. Every 50 minutes. Like desperation was scheduled on Outlook, decline them all. They didn't get to summon me now that the train had left the station. I wasn't their emergency patch, their midnight fix, their "oh please she knows where the cables are" fallback. Not anymore. Instead, I opened a new document, professional summary, experienced systems architect specializing in secure data design. It read like a eulogy for my former self. Sterile. Hollow. A stack of words stripped of pulse or purpose. As if describing what I used to do would convince anyone I still could. Buzz again, same area code. I hovered over the red circle like I was about to launch a missile, then it came, not a call. A message, from Carla, St. Carla from payroll, keeper of forgotten lunch receipts and the last decent human in a building full of backstabbers. Hey, random question. Did you change the server room access code before you left? No one can get in. Oh, there it was. That spark. That delicious, sizzling confirmation. They really had no clue. I replied with one word, nope. No winking emoji. No emoji at all. Just the solid, deadpan simplicity of a dropped mic. She didn't write back. I didn't expect her to. Somewhere inside that tower of expensive software and flammable egos, someone was sweating hard. I turned off my ringer, marched into the kitchen, poured myself a wine glass big enough to serve soup in, then settled onto the sofa like a queen reclaiming her throne. My box of former belongings sat nearby like a broken crown. This was no longer grief. And no longer shock. It was something new, anticipation, the kind of cold, clean thrill that trickles in when you realize the trap door just swung open, and you're the one holding the key. They replaced me with someone more affordable. Let's see how much money Kevin saves them by midnight. The first voicemail hit at 2:41 p.m., 3 hours after Carla's text. I was halfway through an episode of a show where couples pretended to build furniture together while emotionally imploding. My phone lit up with a non-anonymous number. They were getting clever. Too late. Voicemail #1. Hi, this is Kevin. I think you were the previous IT lead. I'm just wondering if maybe you left the credentials somewhere? Specifically the admin set for DN7 access. Kinda urgent. If you could, call back, that'd be amazing. There it was, the voice, softer than expected. Nervous. A little too peppy, like he still believed hard work might fix this. That's cute. You don't fix a vault you've locked yourself out of. Didn't even press play again. I let it sit there, breathing, stewing, refilled my glass, drank to the sound of his cluelessness echoing off the inside of my screen. Then came voicemail #2.3:12 p.m. Hi again, Kevin here. Sorry to bother you. We're just, kind of in a bind here. The department needs access to the core vault ASAP. Nobody seems to know your override protocol. If you could reach out, we'd really appreciate it. He sounded strained now, not panicked, not yet. But close. I could hear chairs scraping, middle managers mumbling, maybe even Mark getting that sheen of sweat he always blamed on poor office ventilation. I paused my show. Closed the laptop. They didn't just fire the woman who could solve this, they fired the only person who built it. Maple jumped onto the couch beside me, sensing my stillness. I scratched her ears and whispered, buckle up, girl. The fun part's starting. Another buzz, voicemail #3, now from Chad. Yes, that Chad. His voice was thinner, flatter. Jennifer. Hey. I just wanted to, well, I think there's been a misunderstanding. We really valued your contributions. We're working on resolving a small issue internally and could use a bit of assistance from you. Give me a call when you can. Happy to discuss a consulting arrangement, of course compensated. Hope to hear from you soon. Compensated? Oh Chad, you sweet, arrogant tumbleweed of a man. I sipped my wine. Didn't respond. Wasn't ready yet. Let them stew. Let them wonder. Let Kevin draft his resignation letter in tears. I had time and a whole bottle left. Hey Jennifer, it's Kevin. Again, just checking in, still need those credentials. Things are getting kinda strange here. Can you call me back? Strange? Honey, you're standing in front of a biometric steel vault that only opens for me. That's not strange. That's the opening scene of a horror story where you're the clueless intern who hears a creak and decides to investigate. Voicemail #3, 4:20 p.m. I'm gonna need those credentials like ASAP. I don't think you understand the position you're putting us in. This is really affecting operations. There it was. The pivot, panic. Subtle, creeping. That crack in the voice when someone realizes this isn't a delay, it's a free fall. I pictured him then, standing in front of the data core's entrance. Still wearing his new higher orientation lanyard, pit stains blooming like ink blots on that wrinkled button-up he probably called professional. Tapping the glass. Tugging the handle. Watching the red LED blink with perfect, uncaring rhythm. Welcome to the machine, Kevin. By the time voicemail #4 arrived, 5:03 p.m., he had abandoned formality. Okay, I know things didn't go great. But this is serious now. There's pressure from above. The executive suite is breathing down my neck. I need to get access. Can't you just help? I hit replay. Twice. He'd said please. Like it cost him something. I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. That version of me, the one who would have dropped everything to fix it, she died somewhere between Chad's smug dismissal and the click of my deactivated badge. That girl was gone. I'd mourned her, buried her in a metaphorical parking lot, and moved on. Then came voicemail number 5, 6:47 p.m. Hi Jennifer. It's Kevin. Again. Look, I don't know what's going on. The CTO's here now. He's furious. I told him maybe you had a reason. That maybe they didn't treat you right. Could you please help? Just temporarily? He sounded wrecked. I closed my eyes, imagined Kevin sitting cross-legged outside the vault, surrounded by whiteboard diagrams no one understood, leadership pacing like anxious zoo animals behind him. A half-eaten, burnt Hot Pocket stinking up the break room. Heels clicking across the linoleum. Panic mounting. This wasn't urgency anymore, this was regret. No response from me. Not yet. Every minute added interest to their debt. Then, at 7:34 p.m., the big one landed. Mark's name lit my screen like an insect flying too close to a bug zapper, glowing. Twitching. Toast. I hadn't heard from him directly since the HR ambush. Back when he nodded through my erasure like an extra in a courtroom drama who forgot his one line. Now I didn't feel rage. I felt the clinical curiosity of someone observing an accident from behind glass, safe, distant, wholly unaffected. I let the call ring out. He called again, 8:25 p.m. this time. I answered, Jennifer. Hey, glad I caught you, Mark chirped, too chipper, too rehearsed. That awkward enthusiasm he used when trying to pivot out of forgetting his own talking points. Mum, I said, letting him flail. Well, just wanted to check in. You know, no hard feelings. You were such a valuable asset to the org, always. Appreciated. Silence, dead air. I could hear his AC humming in the background, probably still in the office, probably pacing near the locked door with his sleeves rolled up like he knew what wiring was. Anyway, he barreled ahead, sweating through his own voice. We're just running into a small hiccup. Nothing crazy. Kevin's having difficulty getting access to one of the secured environments. Looks like some of your procedures weren't, properly documented. Hiccup, cute, little hiccup. You mean the full-blown system-wide freeze that's tanking every team from analytics to finance? That hiccup, you're referring to DN7? I asked, casually. Pause. Yeah, that's the one. We were hoping you might step in. Just help smooth things out. You know, keep it professional. There it was, the soft switch from fake friendly to legally veiled threats. Predictable, Jennifer, he continued, dragging my name like it might pull favor. You understand there are still professional responsibilities involved. Not providing critical access credentials, well, that could be interpreted negatively. Possibly as interference. Even sabotage. Sabotage. The last refuge of the incompetent. I didn't answer immediately, took a deliberate sip from my wine. Mark, I began slowly, do you recall the Q3 audit report I sent your way? Silence. Which one, specifically? The one outlining the biometric locks vulnerability. The one explaining that not assigning a backup admin created a single point of failure. The document where I explicitly warned what would happen if I became unavailable. More quiet. I could practically hear his throat tightening. Imagining his eyes darting to his inbox, scrolling past all those flagged messages with the subject line, urgent, access redundancy proposal, the one you ignored because purchasing a secondary license would have cost the company $800. Gulp, audible this time, like a man realizing he'd just stepped into a shark tank wearing bacon cologne. I didn't wait for his spin. Didn't need to. He'd chosen silence over accountability then, now he could enjoy the echo chamber. He built. I didn't hesitate. Tapped the red icon and cut the call clean. The silence that followed? It felt like applause. Not from an audience, but from the universe. I sank back into my couch, heart still pulsing with that sharp, fizzy rush, not grief, not resentment. Something sharper. Something pure. Power. Not handed over. Not requested. Seized. I opened the group chat. Still named Control-Alt Delinquents. We coined it during those early pandemic months, when everything felt like an endless Zoom room and nobody had the energy to pretend Mark contributed anything. Lately, it had gone quiet. Promotions, burnouts, slow slides into the soft resignation of quiet quitting. But not tonight. Tonight, it lit up like a switchboard in a spy film. I dropped the first message. Jennifer, so, is Kevin sleeping in the hallway tonight, or did he bring a tent? 3 seconds. Then chaos. Raj, op says. He's pacing. Jess, facilities girl, it's a war zone. The interns are crying. Tina, accounting, they ordered 16 pizzas to the 4th floor. 16. Execs look like they're prepping for battle. Raj again, Kevin tried to spoof the lock with an AI voice mod. Told the scanner he was you. Biometric didn't even flinch. Jess, Chad tried yelling, "Executive override," like it's Star Trek. Door responded with, "Nothing." Tina, losses just crossed $2.3 million an hour. Finance is tracking it in real time. They've dispatched 2 teams offsite to troubleshoot the human component. Codename, Operation O. I read every word like I was watching an office-themed episode of Game of Thrones, except instead of swords, the dragons held MBAs, and the undead horde wore custom lanyards. Kevin, it turned out, had spent most of his evening pacing like a lost kindergartner locked out of his own birthday party. Someone gave him a folding chair. Someone else, probably Chad, blamed the janitors. Raj said Mark spent the afternoon pretending to coordinate with legal while stress-eating trail mix like it was his final supper. Then came the image. Jess sent a photo. Grainy, slightly crooked. Clearly taken in stealth mode. 10 executives, real adults in designer suits, lined up against the hallway tiles like Fallout survivors. Phones clutched tight, batteries fading. Ties off. Heels discarded. Nibbling cold pepperoni off paper plates like extras in a corporate apocalypse film nobody asked for. To Jess, they've been there since 10 a.m. Consultants coming tomorrow. Kevin's I won't stop twitching. I stared at that photo for a long time, not laughing, not gloating. Something deeper. Something strategic. This wasn't just amusing anymore, this was leverage. They weren't scrambling because they couldn't fix it. They were spiraling because it never occurred to them that I might walk away. I wasn't a colleague to them, I was infrastructure. Invisible. Assumed. Like the background noise in a waiting room. And now? Now they were sleeping on tile floors, bleeding revenue. The power dynamic didn't just shift. It flipped. So I started planning, not vengeance. That was already unfolding nicely. I meant negotiations. Real ones. Costly, documented, preferably made public. If they wanted access, they weren't going to grovel. They'd pay. In humiliation, in submission, in acknowledgement. They erased me once, now they'd learn the price of ignoring the architect of their entire digital skeleton. At 8:12 a.m. sharp, the cavalry showed up. Raj, oh my god. They brought in the badges. External ops just walked in. Pretty sure they're from Argon Tech. Jess, one guy's got a goatee and fingerless gloves. I'm not even joking. That got my attention. I put down my mug and hit refresh like I was tracking a live earnings call. Jess again, another dude has a briefcase. Not a laptop bag. A literal, shiny, old-school briefcase. Tina, they've got toolkits. Thermal imagers. Asked if the lock detects acoustic anomalies. Is that real? I smiled. It was very real, because while Chad was cutting budgets and Mark was designing inspirational slide decks with stock photos of mountain climbers, I was spending evenings imagining exactly this moment. I engineered that vault like a fortress designed to outlive me. No backups. No override keys. A triple-layer scan, handprint, retina, voice. All registered to one individual. Me, they thought I was replaceable. Turns out, I was the blueprint. The experts finally arrived, an elite team with overpriced gear and puffed up egos, thinking they'd outsmart a weary woman armed with 10 years of overwork, bitterness, and meticulous engineering. Their first mistake? They focused on bypassing the obstacle. Never once did they bother understanding the mechanism itself, because Dan 7 wasn't just biometric. It was temperamental, intentionally so. I'd customized every byte of its firmware. Wrote an encrypted handshake protocol from scratch. My favorite addition? A voltage-sensitive tamper sensor spliced into the power regulation unit behind the scan interface. Translation? Any interference, too much pressure, too much noise, or even a technician with an aggressive wristwatch, would trigger a cascade shutdown, and that's exactly what they did. 9:31 a.m. Raj, oh my god. They drilled it. Jess, heard a spark, then dead silence. Panels dark. Tina, Kevin puked in the hallway. I didn't even flinch. That response was by design. The failsafe wasn't cinematic, no alarms, no smoke, no explosive theatrics. Just precision. A pulse, a compact electromagnetic burst that silently fried the internal controller, scorched the ID circuit, and wiped every stored record. Access logs? Gone. Manual backups? Erased. Override tokens? Vaporized. They hadn't just locked themselves out. They'd shattered the key, torched the doorknob, and misplaced the blueprints. Jess, the consultants are panicking. One asked if anyone still employed knows how to recover encrypted logs. Raj, Kevin raised his hand. Nobody even looked his direction. Tina, Mark's pacing like a man whose custody weekend got cancelled last minute. I burst into laughter. So hard I nearly dropped my coffee. But it wasn't schadenfreude. Okay, maybe a little. Mostly, it was vindication, because I had warned them, not once. Not casually. Thorough audits. Detailed memos. Presentations with color-coded slides. I told them the risk. I explained the consequences. They had gambled institutional memory against the cost of an $800 additional admin license. Now they were facing server rebuilds, vendor escalations, and losses stacking by the minute. Internal systems paralyzed. External clients disconnected. The once humming data vault was now a useless concrete tomb, and the floor outside, their new operations hub, still, no outreach. Not yet. Which was fine, because when they did reach out, they wouldn't be speaking to Jennifer, the employee. They'd be negotiating with Jennifer, the contractor, and I don't come cheap. 11:04 a.m. 2 full days after Chad tossed my career into a cardboard box, the call finally came, not from Chad, who was probably hiding under a desk, not from Mark, who by now had likely developed a rash in the shape of the company logo. No. It came from her, Janine Carlson, Chief Operating Officer, voice of the quarterly town halls, queen of buzzwords and bullet points. I had only ever seen her from a distance, spotlighted on stage in stilettos that cost more than my car insurance, speaking like she'd been possessed by a TED Talk. Now, that same voice came through my speaker. Brittle, halting, like a porcelain doll developing fractures. Jennifer, thank you for answering. I didn't respond. Let the silence spread. Let her chase it. I want to acknowledge that this situation has escalated beyond expectations, and that your role in our system's architecture was far more critical than documented. She made it sound like I was a discontinued soda flavor. Unique, she said. Then came the pitch. We're prepared to reinstate your previous title, with a substantial raise. Full benefits. Retroactive compensation. Her voice wavered on substantial, like she'd bitten her own tongue mid-sentence. I stirred the tea in my mug with exaggerated slowness. She wasn't done. We're also willing to formally recognize your contributions to the Dan 7 system. A memo. Company-wide. There it was, the closest thing to an apology the corporation would ever authorize, packaged in sanitized HR verbiage and internal-only distribution. I waited, held the pause until it stretched thin enough to snap, then, calmly, no, a beat, air, rushed through the line. I'm sorry. I'm not interested in returning, I said. I'm not your staff anymore. I'm independent. Consultant status. Another pause. Longer. Stiffer. My current rate is $200,000 for 4 hours. Paid in advance. Wire transfer only. She choked, actually choked, tried to disguise it as a cough, failed. Jennifer, that's extremely unusual. Not for an organization hemorrhaging 7 figures per hour because it undervalued the person who built its spine. She pivoted. I understand you're frustrated. But we do have procedures. Legal review. Procurement chains. I smiled, not that she could see it, but I made sure she could hear it in my silence. There aren't additional options, I stated evenly. Either the funds arrive, or your blackout continues. A pause followed, long, measured, reluctant. And system recovery, she asked. You'll receive restored access. I'll reconstruct interface protocols if necessary, I replied. But there are other terms. Not negotiable. A sigh escaped her throat, drawn out, defeated, costly. I understand, she muttered. Please continue. 1. Chad reads a scripted apology aloud. Entire technology team must attend. I expect the footage circulated. Slack minimum. Internal server optional. Another breath, shorter this time, acceptable. 2. Mark does the same. In person. Next company-wide meeting. No proxy, no edits, no PR filter. Fine, she conceded. Both manageable. Anything else? 3. My name appears retroactively as lead engineer of Dan 7. Company records. Official documentation. Understood. 4. You speak to me again only through invoice correspondence. I heard her inhale, ready to protest, then abandon the attempt before it began. You'll receive the transfer details within 60 minutes, she said, voice now stripped of posture. Thank you. Good, I replied. You're paying for every second wasted thinking I was disposable. Then I ended the call. No grin. No smirk, just clarity, because the narrative was no longer theirs. 9:00 a.m. sharp, I arrived, not out of courtesy, but because timing is everything. The wire cleared, $200,000. 4 hours. That morning alone earned more than the previous 11 months combined. Reception had changed. The girl behind the counter was unfamiliar, likely new, fresh from university orientation. She looked up like she'd spotted a ghost in sensible heels. Her fingers hovered between dialing security and pulling up onboarding notes. I didn't stop. My footsteps echoed, confident percussion against corporate tile. Desks came alive as I passed. Coffee mugs forgotten, gossip threads paused mid-keystroke. Eyes tracked me like a rumor made flesh. Somewhere near the printer, I heard someone clap. A manager shut it down instantly, still didn't break stride. The executive suite awaited, gilded glass and polished flooring where my sneakers once squeaked. Overtime fixes into forgotten weekends, and there they were, the shameful trifecta: Chad, ashen, clammy, blinking like he hadn't slept since the server locked, Mark, seated, unfortunately. One leg jittering like it wanted to bolt without permission, Janine, stiff against the corner window. Arms crossed. Blazer wrinkled. Spine uncooperative, none of them spoke. Chad opened his mouth. I raised my hand. He closed it, mute button activated. By pure presence. I continued forward, ignoring their fear masquerading as composure. The floor had scorch marks now. Consulting tools scattered like forensic leftovers after an embarrassing crime scene. The scent in the air was part ozone, part executive despair. Of course, they hadn't located the secondary panel. How could they? I installed it alone during a weekend no one authorized or noticed, buried behind a thermal shroud indistinguishable. To anyone without the blueprint. I knelt, pressed my hand to the casing's edge, slid the decoy cover aside. There it was, my failsafe, the lockbox behind the throne. Phone out. Bluetooth activated. Triple auth, retina scan, voice command, thumb. Recognition. 0.4 seconds, system recognized me instantly, initiated recovery. 90 seconds ticked by. No words. No interruptions, the silence was sacred, like a cathedral awaiting resurrection. Lights flickered. A chime sounded, subtle but triumphant. Progress bar advanced across the interface, each pixel a nail in their arrogance. Then, clicked. A smooth mechanical breath, the vault unlocked, steel shifted, groaning as if it too was exhausted from the company's incompetence. The door inched open, dignified, measured, releasing a hiss of pressurized air as if Dan 7 itself exhaled in relief. I rose, turned. Janine had stepped forward, posture regained but expression unraveling. She tried to project confidence, but her gaze betrayed 12 different flavors of guilt. I've completed the contract, I said. Your 4 hours are done. I offered nothing else. No handshake. No summary. No time for ceremonial backpatting. Turned again and walked, past cubicles now buzzing with post-recovery speculation, past monitors that once glowed under my midnight repairs, past men who believed legacies were replaceable by LinkedIn profiles and optimism. No farewell. Just the door sealing shut behind me. Let them figure it out. They purchased access. Not amnesty. Not trust. Not redemption, just the opening scene of a reckoning, and I hope every bite reminds them, I built their kingdom. And now, they finally understand what it costs to erase the queen who coated their crown. Thanks for watching, fellow cubicle warriors. Subscribe for more digital revenge stories.